Hello, friends. My co-host Melanie and I are going to take a look at the Republicans panicking about the excitement surrounding Kamala Harris.
Your sense of the vice president's appeal. What's it all about to these young voters?
Well, first off, I want to say those numbers are freaking out Republicans because she is so popular with young voters. And in 2022, when young people came out in record numbers, they came out so favorably for Democrats, they canceled out the Republican boomer vote. She is like fire online. And we're seeing, Charlie XCX, one of Gen Z's most popular artists, lifting her up, saying that she is Brat, the name of her album. And, even the things that Republicans have made fun of Vice President Harris for, her laugh, her statements about coconuts, young people are grabbing onto that and highlighting that that's what they love about her. And so she speaks to young people in a way that's authentic through culture and art, in a way that's more of their generation. And we're seeing it take off like wildfire. And I just want to remind people there are 8.3 million new voters eligible to vote in 2024 since the 2022 election. This is the Gen Z millennials make up the largest generational voting bloc. This is tremendous power. It's not just an online fad. This is going to turn out to be true electoral power this election.
There's another youth organization. It's the Voters of Tomorrow, and it held their annual summit yesterday featuring a video recorded by the vice president, and she spoke directly about the impact of young voters in this race. Take a listen to what she said.
In this election, we know young voters will be key, and we know your vote cannot be taken for granted. It must be earned, and that is exactly what we will do. There is so much at stake this November, our most fundamental freedoms, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, and the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body without the government telling her what to do.
How important is it for Vice President Harris to make young voters feel like they are critical in this race?
I mean, in 2020, Biden and Harris won in huge part because of young voters. They turned out in record numbers and voting overwhelmingly to defeat Donald Trump and to elect Biden and Harris. There is no way that she will become President Harris without the youth vote. There's just so many young voters, and now they are energized. It was, I run Next Gen, we're the country's largest youth vote organization. We're in battleground states across the country. And I can tell you from talking to our teams in Pennsylvania and Arizona and Michigan, by Monday morning, our organizers were being flooded by young people saying, I want to register and pledge to vote. And before it, we just didn't have that feel on the ground. And so we're seeing almost immediately a huge surge and boost of energy to young people across the country.
Yeah. Listen, as much as I'd love to watch more TikToks and memes and stuff, because it is pretty fun, let me ask you about the Hispanic voters. It is a group that Biden was struggling with, but the latest New York Times poll has Harris more than erasing that gap. What does Harris need to do to ensure this key voting bloc shows up for her on Election Day?
Well, I was just at the vice president's residency 2 days ago, where she had Latino leaders from across the country honoring our community, our culture, and saying that she wanted to uplift everything that our community struggles with and also make sure that we're able to move forward together. So I see that she really has put in the time and energy with the Latino community. She speaks well to the community. She also comes from her own immigrant story. Of course, Latinos, we live at the duality of many of us being newly arrived to the country. And also, many of us lived in this country before it was even a construct. And so she's able to really speak to that, speak to the unique challenges. And also, most Latinos are young. That's the other thing. We are the youngest ethnic group in the country. So the more she connects with young people, the more she invests and is able to raise the Latino voting population's support behind her.
Okay.
Christina, the political landscape has dramatically shifted with Vice President Kamala Harris's recent surge in popularity and support, leaving Republicans scrambling to counteract her growing influence. As Harris steps into the spotlight as the presumptive Democratic nominee for the 2024 presidential election, her rise has generated both enthusiasm among Democrats and anxiety among Republicans. Harris's ascent has been marked by a remarkable wave of enthusiasm and support from various sectors. Within just a week of announcing her candidacy, Harris raised an impressive $200 million, underscoring the high level of excitement among her supporters. Her favorability ratings have also seen a significant boost, rising from 35% to 43% in a short period. This surge in support has been bolstered by endorsements from influential figures, including former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan and former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, who had previously backed Biden.
Big deal with Errol Lewis on Spectrum News. So the young voter conundrum, part 175. How do you get young voters to turn out? What do you think? One, do you think Harry Enten is right, Errol? Just kidding, Harry. He's standing right there staring at me. And also, how focused, I wonder how focused either campaign should be or is going to be on turning out young voters when they've got to focus on turning out lots of other aspects of their coalition.
Well, look, it's a big puzzle. Everybody's got to try and do everything, right? But this has been, and Harry's always right, by the way. But there's this thing called an age inversion that pollsters have picked up and have been talking about, which is that Democrats normally do much better with young people, and that has just not been true. It's one of the things that set off the panic that led to a lot of the discussion about why Biden needed to step down. He was doing better with older voters. Unusual for It really doesn't matter whose name is at the top of the ticket. That's right. If Republicans are going to win this year in a big landslide because the whole country is changing, then that's going to happen no matter who the candidate is.
And also, Essie, but then something else we've been talking about is kind of the reset. I'm sure the Trump campaign would say we're not changing the playbook at all because they say that these are the same policies of Joe Biden that Kamala Harris is pushing. But one thing we know from their campaign memos that they have said to lawmakers, laser focus in on the border and as they try to label her and want to label her a border czar, which is a misnomer. Does this become, do you think, the border issue a bigger or smaller issue now with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket?
It's still a big issue, and they are right to focus on that policy. I would add the economy as well. Yeah. These were two huge drivers. Before Biden got out, they are still going to be huge drivers, and they can attach her to the border. She was appointed to sort of solve this crisis or at least oversee it. And there are plenty of areas and avenues to go after her on policy. What they're doing, because they're scrambling, and they might not admit it, but they are panicked for sure. Now they're sort of fighting again. This once unified party that was very excited and on the same page is now divided over how to attack her. So you've got Republicans like Tim Burchett talking about her being a DEI hire. You've got other Republicans like Mike Johnson, House Speaker, saying, please don't do this.
Like
this
directly.
Is bad for us.
Like, please do not.
This is bad for us. Yeah. So the unity is gone, right? It's now a new day, and the party, it's funny. It's like both campaigns are starting from scratch now. So they're all kind of scrambling.
Let's see. How do you run a presidential campaign from scratch in 6 months?
Yes.
We're about to find out.
Yes.
Talk about a new campaign strategy, new campaign memo out from now Kamala Harris campaign. The memo saying that they're not only, from Jenna Malley Dillon, they're not only going to be targeting the blue wall, they're now also kind of opening back up and going on offense on the Sunbelt states, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. Bullish? Too bullish?
No. Strategically important and necessary. I mean, the biggest problem, again, that why the strategists were panicking over a Biden candidacy was that they were going to have to sort of really try and win all of the blue wall, and that's about all that they could do. They were going to give up on Georgia. The numbers look terrible in Nevada. The numbers look weak in Arizona. Just to be able to say, okay, we've got some possibilities here. You know, a lot of this is about making the other side spend money, tying them down in North Carolina.
Things you say in memos released to the press can also have another intent.
Yeah, exactly right. So there's a lot of that. And of course, she's credible in a lot of these areas. Yeah, the other thing, by the way, is that she, in redefining this campaign and the shape of it for Democrats, is going to talk more about the economy. Because when people say inflation, and that's the only story, the stock market hit record highs 36 times this year, including during the RNC. And the Democrats, once they start talking about that, you're going to see in certain areas, the economy is red hot. The economy is doing just fine, and that's going to get them some votes.
Dropping out of the presidential race. And 2 days since he endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as his replacement, a lot has happened in that time, to put it mildly. I mean, in less than 3 days, Harris has already secured enough delegates to win the nomination, making her essentially the de facto nominee heading into next month's convention. Her campaign also says that between Sunday afternoon and last night, it raised over $100 million, with the majority of donors giving for the very first time. That's a big deal. That includes the largest single-day fundraising haul in American history. The campaign also says in that same time period, nearly 60,000 folks signed up as volunteers. People were going to be out there door knocking, making phone calls. Harris has shored up support from, she's also shored up support, I should say, from nearly every prominent Democrat, including, just today, the respective party leaders of the House and the Senate.
Kamala Harris and her candidacy has excited and energized the House Democratic Caucus, the Democratic Party, and the nation.
The enthusiasm in this big, diverse, representative party was amazing. It was palpable. You could cut it with a knife.
And just today, Harris made her first official campaign stop. And she did it with a delicious, and I mean delicious, dose of trolling Donald Trump and the Republicans. You know why? Because her first campaign stop today was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is the same city where just last week the Republican Party held their convention.
The rapid rise of Harris has not gone unnoticed by Republicans, who have launched a series of attacks in an attempt to undermine her appeal. Prominent Republican figures such as Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham and Ron DeSantis have sought to portray Harris as a dangerous liberal, despite her centrist political stance. These attacks have included exaggerated claims about her policies, such as eliminating private health insurance and banning fossil fuel production, which Harris has not advocated for. Former President Donald Trump has also joined the fray, disparaging Harris during rallies and attempting to paint her as incompetent and far left. Trump's rhetoric has been echoed by other Republicans, who have expressed concerns about Harris's potential to energize Democratic voters and tighten the race. The excitement surrounding Harris has forced Republicans to reassess their strategies. The GOP had initially focused on portraying the election as a battle between youth and age, but Harris's candidacy has disrupted this narrative, given her relative youth compared to Trump. Veteran strategist Rick Wilson noted that Republicans lack a backup plan, and that Harris's strategic edge in the youth versus age narrative is substantial. Moreover, the enthusiasm for Harris has translated into tangible support, with over 170,000 volunteers joining her campaign efforts in just a week. This groundswell of support has reinvigorated the Democratic base and shifted the focus away from concerns about Biden's age and cognitive abilities. Despite the surge in support, Harris faces significant challenges. Republicans have highlighted issues such as immigration, which remains a contentious topic and a potential vulnerability for Harris. Additionally, Harris must navigate the complexities of selecting a running mate and maintaining the momentum as the initial excitement begins to wane. The excitement surrounding Kamala Harris's candidacy has injected new energy into the Democratic Party, while simultaneously causing panic among Republicans. As the 2024 election approaches, the battle lines are being drawn, and both parties are gearing up for a highly competitive race. Harris's ability to sustain her momentum and address key challenges will be crucial in determining the outcome of this pivotal election.